Hi. All right. So I'm gonna fix this up a little bit. This is my new rig that I'm using in my new format. That's my cat. Yeah, and so I wanted to come on. It's evening time right now, and I am just sitting here. Maybe that is part of the vibe too. I don't know. We'll see. Kind of looks like my hair is funny. But anyway, so I was just sitting here and I was thinking about how, right now I'm working on this new format, which is that I am doing practices in the mornings at 8 o'clock. And the goal with those is that it's at a set time for a set amount of time, and that there is an actual program that we run with that has a format. Very antithetical to what I'm doing right now, which is just getting on and talking. And it's what I've done for like 300 videos. So part of the thing that's been really challenging, and challenging more in sort of like a developmental curve way, is shifting out of that, of like the pattern of just getting on and being like doing just what I'm doing right now. And it's just being a bit more observant of time, of other people's time, and also be more in the service of supporting a practice in a way that is practical. So, yeah, so I was just sitting here and I was thinking, I was like, I really miss because right now those practices are, I also don't save them. So those ones aren't up to watch later. So it's like you either get them at 8 or they're out. And I'm going to do that until I really get the formatting and I get the flow of it right. So the 30-minute sessions will be like really succinct and tight. And every day so far I've learned something about like what needs to be sort of optimized. So once they're optimized, they'll be up and and they'll be watchable at any time during the day. So the the Parinama promise. But the thing is that I'm noticing though is like that work right now has this like super functional thing to it. Let me like Is the problem with like looking at my hair in this thing? Oh my god. So yeah. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that, like, right now, the learning curve on those is so functional that the aspect of this, which of, like, sitting here and reading and reflecting and doing the practice is, like, significantly lower because I'm so focused on getting better at being able to show up in a structured format. So I was just sitting here and I was like, I really miss this and I'm just going to try to do it. I'm just going to try to do it. And so if you had followed along, or maybe this will be the first you hear of it, is in this channel under live, there's like 300 plus read along director's cut style or director's commentary style videos of the Parinama book. And the intention of those was really, like, initially it really was about the reaction and understanding the reaction people had as soon as they had Parinama method in their hands, and just the straight up overwhelm factor of it, where it's like, how, and even just that, not only is the book like physically like sort of like have a presence to it, the internal aspect of it does as well. It's dense. Like every section of it has like sort of its own center of gravity and its own sort of like working capacity for how it has its kind of impact on shifting and contributing to the cumulative aspect of this practice. So Yeah. So the lives originally were intended to be for readers to have a companion for the journey. Why is this, like, bothering me so much? I don't understand. Like, so here's the thing about my hair is that, like, it, like, starts to melt as soon as I'm sitting here. I guess and also this is, like, on reverse. So, like, it's, like, so annoying. I know people like, I've gotten some really quality feedback on how to manage this, but it's not happening right now. And I'm a little bit, almost kind of, like, sleepy. It's the end of the day, so there's, like, a different energy here, and I don't know how long I'm gonna go on this. But I don't know. I miss this format as being part of my life, and it's over, like, as far as it being, like, the primary format of bringing Party Mom onto this channel. But there's really a chance I wanna make room for it to continue happening just because it's really nice. I've really enjoyed spending this, like, really free form time reading the book. And in the last few days, as I've been prepping and learning and like, optimizing for doing a, structured format, I've been rereading, like, smaller sections of it. But starting from the top here, it's almost like it's like, why not read it again? Why not read it again? When we open up with chapter 1, yeah. It's interesting too to consider going back in through this process. It's interesting like, to me right now to notice that I'm having a reaction of being kind of, like, overwhelmed by the undertaking at hand that's, like, at afoot with it. It's interesting as I'm looking at this, I'm like, "Wow." Feels kind of like strangely impassable. Like, it's like, "Oh my gosh, that." But, if there's anything that I've learned in the last year of knowing this book, now that it exists, is that it works by constantly showing up with it consistently. So, it's not even like that I don't even know how possible the idea of, like, sort of a classic mastery of this is, rather than, like, the seeding every day of just a little bit more of this, like, dissolving and softening and understanding and coming to know these, like, these aspects of our nature, that is really, like, ultimately how this works. Like, one thing when I was finishing up doing the readings, the cover to cover, I was thinking, I was like, "Well, how do I present this as this framework? How do I bring this and say, like, here's how you do this?" And the thing that is just clear to me now is, like, how you do it is you just do it every day. You do a little bit every day. And in doing it, what we do is we yoke together the cognitive, we yoke together the emotional, and we yoke together the reflex all in one. So we're addressing our understanding, the feeling, and then the patterning all simultaneously so that they work in concert with our beliefs, with our, like, emotions and just in our subconscious and unconscious. So we're not fighting against any aspect of, like, of ourself, of our nervous system, of our being. So just it's like every day, it's like a little bit and showing up and just experiencing how it starts to work cumulatively. So, yeah, I'm a little sleepy right now. It's not like a normal reading where I'm kind of like could probably go on forever. And if you've watched any of them, it probably some of them feel like I am going on forever. But maybe I'll read a little bit here and see what happens. I've read this quote a lot over the last week. And so I'm in chapter 1 here. If you're following along in the book, it's page 3, actually. And, entering into the book itself, this is part 1, the first 3 chapters. The Thomas Merton quote, which is, "Finally, I am coming to the conclusion that my highest ambition is to be what I already am, that I will never fulfill my obligation to surpass myself unless I first accept myself. And if I accept myself fully in the right way, I will already have surpassed myself." Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I'm working on this kind of reformatting and creating a more concise, skilled presentation and practice space of Parinama in this channel and practicing here. And ultimately, the better that I get at that, it's going to make me much more fit to actually bring Parinama out into the world in a way that is a lot more practical than just being like, "Here, you can just read randomly at some time during the day for about an hour with no structure and, really, no promise for what is going to be the outcome of this for you." But, I'm working on another project, and part of that project, it's related to my professional life, and part of that is I was going through some, old documents and records and pictures, and it's just kind of interesting to be experiencing. It's like a period of my life. It's like the first 10 years of my career, and looking at the pictures and reading the documents and just, experiencing sort of walking back through that has been surprisingly evocative for me in ways that I didn't really expect, but just kind of evocative in, this Thomas Merton quote. So Thomas Merton also said that getting older is, reaching the top of the ladder and realizing you climbed the wrong one. So as I guess, a philosophical, is it what is it? There's a word for it. It's not gonna come to me too easily right now. But as a, contemplative, whatever, um person, a lot of what his, there he has a lot of really good material about authenticity. And, I think one of the things in reading and looking through the early documents from my professional life is that one of the things that struck me was in all of the different ways that I was minimizing myself and contorting myself to try to fit into a life that was really a pretty strong mismatch for me. And there was this professional portrait of me, and I'd shown it to a friend, and they're like, "Oh, it's so pretty." And it was interesting because all I saw in it was this kind of simmering rage. It's, it's interesting because, yeah, just as far as authenticity is concerned, and even what I deal with right now with this is the thinking about, this project that I'm working on right now is going to really involve really a really brave disclosure and honesty and authenticity, and just looking into that and realizing right now for me it's the only option. And yet there's still this thing, and now realizing that's kind of tied to these earlier years about this investment of building this persona and building all of this time spent in in the sort of this, I guess I'm just gonna call it professional and then ultimately executive world. And I guess reconciling that, and reconciling the just sort of this potential loss of the safety that lifestyle provides, that, or at least the illusion of safety, and just respecting that as I kind of watch it happen. But So just reading the first page of the book, that you and your life are not a series of problems to be solved. You are not a math test, a sequence of equations that need to be resolved using the correct calculations. Your life is a poem, a walk in the woods through valleys and over mountaintops with dark spots, lush areas, the tang of rot and musk blending with the air, the sun on your skin or in the rain, and muscles burning. Your life is to be lived and experienced with all these elements: sunlight, darkness, musk, verdancy, rot, and fresh air. Our life path, like the walk in the woods, leads us through all sorts of experiences that are affected by preference for pleasure, comfort, and challenge. Buddha taught his followers that obstacles are the path and that discomfort and hurdles are essential to our experience. Think of how, when we feel lost, discomfort can act as our inner trail guide, steering and pointing out the correct course through life's swampy undergrowth and around its slippery rocks, a diviner that tells us to pay attention or that we're going the wrong way. In the context of what I was just talking about, like the idea that discomfort tells us we're going the wrong way, I think, for at least for me, part of the challenge with that is when we really there's really practical reasons to want to continue doing something that's not right for ourselves, as like in our authenticity. So actually, yeah, that's this. It's like I put the book down and think this one out. So it's like the thing of being committed and spending like 20 years working in a profession that, like, there was so much I loved about it. There was so much I loved about working with people and building teams, and just the great fortune I had in being able to make a bunch of money, and even the things I learned and the growth that I experienced. But, like, that was all while I was doing it with things that were related to things that are acculturated, or if that's a word, in the professional world, that are kind of like traumatizing. But there's also a part of it, and this is the Parinamaverse of it, is that who I was meeting this with, like who the patterning I had in terms of my relationship with feeling, being able to like establish a sense of security, being able to feel like powerful within myself, being able to not constantly be relying on this very kind of obscured quality of people admiring me, because I'm not even gonna say it was liking me, because that was an earlier version, to have the adoration from people, to be supporting people, and that one of the side effects and, possibly one of the major primary motivations for me to be so passionate about helping people had to do with wanting to treat other people like I wish I'd been treated, but also to experience their adoration. And one of the things about practicing the Parinama method, and one of, over the last year, if I think of some of the most fundamental changes that I've experienced in doing a very active practice with this, is that I experience my worth and my love coming from within me. So when I'm, seeking for love from other people isn't from hunger. It's actually just more like an expansion of joy. Like it's like the feeling of love that I wake up and like just loving myself every day. Just that I get to be with myself. I didn't even understand this as a concept. It was only until I experienced it. Like self-love, I'd heard that and I didn't really know what it meant. Like, or it's kinda like, "Oh, you get a massage." I was like, "Yeah, I do that." It doesn't, guess if that's, that's self-love, I guess. But the self-love is actually this really simple thing, which is just that you're on your own side, and that I can, like, look myself in the eye in the mirror and, like, gaze deeply and just feel kind of a surrender and delight where I used to actually be kind of afraid. I used to be afraid to put like, to feel my heartbeat. I'd put my hand on my heart and, like, it would, like, kind of make me, like, good, like, ugh, when I'd feel my heart beating. If I looked in the mirror and looked in my eyes, it felt confronting in this very particular way. So, and, like, what does that mean as far as, like, a practical aspect of this? The practical aspect of it is that as a team builder and as a professional, I had a, like, subconscious riptide that was keeping me working in places, working in teams, working in engagements, out of attachments, and attachments to a deep need for the adoration that the teams gave me. I used to believe it was, like, sort of a sense of duty, but now that I can see it more clearly, I understand that it was really from, like a validation that being that person gave me, the belonging, the sense of belonging, and also belonging as a superior. So then now we're getting into talking about, so that's 4th hub. Now talking about 3rd hub is power and being able to experience power as something that's naturally occurring within us. So when we need people to compliment us and validate us and see us and to create our sense of personal power, like there is an aspect of validation that is part of this like natural essence of being a human being and being in relationship with the world around us, but needing needing that to, restore a sense of, like, a need for validation, like one of the things of, like, needing to have power over people. You have people who say, like, "I've got a team of 50 people. I've got a team of 100 people." A lot of times when people are sort of jostling for social clout and power, to sort of determine, like, who has the bigger career, you have that. It's like how many people work for you in your organization. And then the other side of that, so it's the external validation that's either coming from power over or power under. It's like what powerful people are validating you. So what executives do you work for? What executives are in your network? What celebrities are your friends? What powerful people do you know? Like this is the kind of thing that's like, what's the word for it? It's like when somebody, like, I don't know. It's like if somebody shouts you out, who's powerful. It's like, wow, that what a validation. Whereas, like, that's fine. It's not that that stuff has no place, but, like, what it does for you when it actually, like, restores or temporarily, like, fills the gas tank of the sense of having any personal power, it means that the tank's gonna empty out, and the source of your power is ultimately you. And this is like this eminence that inside of you, this life force, this impetus, this kind of like unknowable thing, this spirit, soul, emblem, chi, whatever you want to call it, that is like the enlivening aspect of our body is inherently lovable. It's inherently worthy in this very, very profound way. It's inherently powerful. this power that operates a body and creates action and creates like ripples and shifts in the world. The Alice Walker quote in the book is the greatest way to take somebody's power away is to convince them they don't have any. And other things, in terms of the shifts would be the capacity to feel really terrible things without being absorbed by them. The capacity to be in the presence of people who are having really strong emotions and not feel hijacked. Or feel like I have to have those emotions too in order to connect with them. To be able to hold space and be respectful but not get absorbed. And probably one of the, like probably the, this is certainly foundational, the first in the stack because it relates to the first hub, but it's just like fearlessness. And by fearlessness, I mean just like the absence of hypervigilance, the absence of constantly sort of like having my head on a swivel and being worried about like survival and like what's going to happen and will I have enough and you know and this has been a really so one kind of caveat I'll draw on this has been really activating for people who are like, yeah, but what about people who don't have anything, who don't have homes, who are not safe? And this is not that we are safe. Like, this is not a guarantee of safety. It is really pointing to, can you feel safe? Can you create the feeling of safety in your body? Can you feel that? Because if we've been activated enough, especially if we've been, even if we've been traumatized, if we have adaptations from early in life, if we're conditioned in a culture that has us constantly worrying about like losing our job, losing health insurance, not being able to pay the mortgage, being homeless, yada yada, like these things are just like tropes that are trotted around, that we're constantly have this kind of notion that the rug could get ripped out from under us. And so part of what a first hub practice really truly involves is being able to take that feeling back and just trust that when something arises, that it's like, I can endure discomfort. I can endure disappointment. I will die eventually someday. It's just, and to that point, I'm just pointing to impermanence. And that I have absolute faith in my ability to figure things out and work through them, to deal with some discomfort and actually find my way onto the other side of something that might be different. So it's being flexible. But and the cost, and so like the sort of the thing that fell away with that is the hypervigilance, which who knew? And this goes back to the cumulative thing with doing this practice, is that I didn't know that that was something that could fall away. I didn't know that you could actually not be hypervigilant all the time. Because part of my thing was that I believed that that hypervigilance is the thing that kept me safe. The fact that I was always worrying about being safe was the thing that kept me safe. Similar to shame, the thing with shame is like, well, if I didn't have, sort of this like chronic shame, I'd become, like I'd run rampant and be out of control. So yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I have in here. And this is like, this is actually a really good um sort of oppositional, like kind of a complementary opposite to what I'm doing in the mornings, which is really building like a structural component to this. And this is really comparative to seeing like this is so unstructured, and it's just really a process of what I hope for you in a practice, which is just reading, contemplating, considering, and bringing this into the sort of crucible of transformation in our own lives, in your own life, in a way that is uniquely and intimately yours, that you discover through your own contemplation, that you discover through your own feeling, and you discover through your own somatic practices that work with your reflexes and shift us in ways that like supersede like consciously trying to strong arm ourselves into change. That when we find comfort in our body, when we find feeling in our body and can like exist with it, when we find the feelings of these things like power and worth and just the expansiveness and feeling into it, like what happens? And I guess one thing I'd say in closing is that it's like, right now, one of the things when people are, like it's really common that people talk to me about this material in a way that's really cognitive. And my resolve around this does not come from my cognitive understanding of this material. Like my conviction is not from feeling like I understand anything. My conviction about the fact that fear is a function for like short-term life-saving reactions. It's not for long-term sustained like states of remaining, like I said, hypervigilant. And the emotions being clipped in, being like pulling it in and feeling less is actually like it just stays trapped in us. So it creates all sorts of weird things like stiffness and pain. And up, go through the whole thing. But my conviction comes from having a direct experience of feeling it, not knowing it. I'm like knowing something. I think the analogy Richard Freeman is used is like holding an avocado seed, it just slips around. Cognitive knowledge is very slippery. But when we can really anchor ourselves in things that we actually have had, like felt, and connect that like to that feeling, like the shift in our somatic, in our body, in the feeling, having this direct experience with it. And then the conscious reclamation, where we put that layer on top, where we kind of seal it all in with some contemplation and some conscious reclamation. The cognitive aspect allows us to actually like learn from it and move forward in a very particular way. So anyhow, so that's it. Thank you. Thank you. This is just me out here spitting bars. And tomorrow morning, 8:00, I'll be up with the sun, trying once again to do a succinct 20 to 30-minute session. I imagine I'll do a little bit better than I did today, and the process will be ongoing. And then hopefully I'm going to get to the point they're going to be good enough that I will save them and put them up, and you can watch them at times other than 8 a.m. on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, or whatever time I wind up doing them. So anyhow, I'm sending you so much love and appreciation. And yeah. And for me, sweet dreams, because I'm about to go to bed. All right. Love you lots. Bye for now.